Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deep South Homestead on Porch Time today. It's already been one tiring morning. We dug sweet potatoes this morning. We've picked apples this morning. We picked peas this morning. We've shelled them through the sheller, which we had 2 bushels. Shelled them through the sheller. Wanda's already canned them. Now it's about 100 degrees out here and we're just taking a break, trying to just chill out for a little while, and I figured this would be as good a time as any to do porch time. But what I was thinking about today was, last week we talked about the Cherokee and how a little bit about their life and some of the things that they went through, and that's still on my mind, some of the things there, and about how the not just the Cherokee. Now, they're not the only ones that went on the Trail of Tears. I mean, there was like 4 other bands or 5 other bands of Indians that Native Americans that went on that march also. It's just that the Cherokee is the one that struck me as one that meant a lot to me. But as I thought about this subject, here at Deep South, we're all about trying to be as sustainable as we can be. And these people, even though I'm way distant related to them, they were very sustainable people. And I think, to be honest with you, I think we could learn a lot from these, from them if we would just take the time to go back and look at some of the things they done and how they survived, and what did they grow, how did they live. Research has showed me that corn was their major crop. They would grow fields of corn. And then some of the stories I read said that they would plant their squash and their beans and their other little smaller garden stuff not far from a creek. And as I thought about that, I began to look at my own property here, and there was homas lived on the property that I own now, and we find arrowheads and stuff like that here, and I've kind of looked at where I find all these artifacts and stuff, and in most of the places where I find the artifacts is on the top of a ridge next to a running stream. Now there's several running streams on the land around me here. I've got one on my property, and I do find those artifacts on the top of the hill next to the running streams. So, actually I have 2 running streams on my property. I was thinking I had just one, but I've actually got 2. And I find artifacts at both, where there's a ridge on both of those streams. And it tells me that they didn't live very far from water. So, the old adage that we try to teach is that water is very important for the homestead. As a matter of fact, to me, it's one of the most important things that if you're going to get a homestead, then you need to have water, because the Native Americans, that's what they did. Our forefathers, that's what they done. They looked for water sources first, and then worked with what was left afterwards. And like I've mentioned on, I think, on one of our live streams or something, I talked about what our future plans are if the Lord allows us to tarry, is to, I'm thinking about next year, if my health permits, to growing I'm going to call it a Cherokee garden. I'm going to try to grow the same vegetables that they grew, because their climate was not much different than ours here. It may get a little cooler in the wintertime, but the summers were basically the same. So I'm thinking about growing the white eagle corn that they grew, and some of the Cherokee tan pumpkins. We have them growing, and we're thinking about growing some trellises of the Trail of Tear beans. Matter of fact, we have those growing this year along with the Cherokee tan pumpkins, trying to figure out what's the best way to grow them. And the Georgia candy squashes that they grew. Now the squash, we call it, when we think of squash, it was more of It was a hard shell squash, what we call like a winter squash or a type of pumpkin of some kind. But we're trying to locate those seeds also. And we're just going to plant that kind of stuff in a particular garden next year as a survival garden to kind of see how it works. Because I really believe that our native friends were onto something. You know, they knew what to plant and how to plant it. Now, they grew some sunflowers. I hadn't really figured out a lot about the sunflowers yet, the varieties or anything like that, but I am looking into that. And I might very well do that also. So, you know, that's kind of maybe a direction that we're going to start heading in the future, is trying to grow some of these same exact heirlooms that they grew. Because if they could survive for thousands of years on these vegetables, then they knew something. And I'm not going to discredit that. I'm going to actually put that into practice. And then if it works okay for us, you know, we'll put videos up about it if everything goes well. And we will, you know, maybe turn around and sell seeds from some of it to maybe if y'all are interested, maybe you could take and maybe plant your own gardens and do the exact same thing. If it works out all right for us, we'll do that. But you know, some of the interesting things that we talked about, remember in my last porch time I talked about there's a place in the native land there where they had these little crosses in the ground. They didn't make them, they're just there. They're called fairies. And I had the blessing this past week of a subscriber sending me a replica of one of these. And I don't know how close I can get to the camera and get it focused in where you can actually see it, but I'm going to try so you can kind of get they're real tiny. I'm going to hold it up and show you how tiny they are. They're called fairy crosses. I'm going to try to get up to the camera, and it may get blurry on me, so just bear with me till I get it focused in. Okay, this is them right here. This is what they look like, and these are in the ground. They do not make these. These are made by Mother Nature herself, makes these little crosses that look like this. I'm just kind of rolling it around to kind of give you a little bit of a view of what it looks like. And there's 5 different colors of these crosses. So, you know, it's kind of interesting to me. It may take me a moment to focus this back to, but I'm going to sit back down now. And, you know, these little crosses was in the ground, and thank you for the subscriber who sent that to me. That means the world to me. I read about them, and now I get to actually hold a replica of one of them in my hand. It's not an actual one, but it is a replica. But it's interesting how that God works in mysterious ways like that, and you actually end up with these things that you never dreamed that you would actually end up with, and God blesses you through others. And thank you for the one who sent this. Thank you so much. But you know, I think that there's a lot that can be learned from the Cherokee that went through all of these hardships, and from the other Indians too. I haven't done a lot of research into the others that went through these, that did this march over to Oklahoma. I know the Choctaws did, and I have some Choctaw in me, and you know. So I mean, I'm probably going to look into them in the future. But the Cherokee's the one that really stuck out to me because they were predominantly farmers. They built homes. They did not move around. They stayed in their own places. They had their homes. Not much different than the early settlers were when they came over here. And as a matter of fact, some of the things I've read when the early settlers came over here, they actually learned a great deal from the Native Americans, because had it not been from some of the things that they learned from the Native Americans, they probably would not have been able to have survived some of the severe winters that they went through. Because, guys, look, you know, they had years just like we have. They had years of drought. They had years of too much rain, just like we do. Like this year has just been horrendous here with rain. The month of August is usually hot and dry here. It was hot, and it's usually dry, but this month already, we've had over 6 inches of rain already this month. And you know, they experienced these same exact things as climate changes took place during their lives, and they had to adapt because if they did not raise their food and figure out a way to be successful at it and figure out a particular type of food that would be a successful food, then they would perish, and they knew that. So I think as homesteaders, we really should take notice of some of these things, you know, and forget the fact that, you know, they were a Native American, they were called savages, they were called, you know, I put that kind of stuff to the side. That stuff don't mean anything to me. What means something to me is what I can learn from those people, because they knew some stuff. They didn't have grocery stores to run to. You know, whatever they raised, that's what they lived off of. If they didn't raise anything, then they didn't survive. So their livelihood depended on them being successful. And as a homesteader, I'm thinking down those very same lines, because if some sort of a life-changing event was to take place and we could not go to a grocery store anymore, then you know, our very livelihood would depend on what we knew and what we could grow. And so many people today are sitting back going, well, I'm just going to wait, you know, when it happens, I'll plant a garden. And look, I'm going to tell you, you need to be planting your garden now. You need to be planting your garden ahead of time, learning all you can learn about what vegetables are the best vegetables to have. Like us, we just stumbled upon a subscriber sent us these Cherokee tan pumpkins, the trellis beans and stuff like that. We've come across some rattlesnake beans, now they call them, that, look, those things are still bearing in this heat. And we picked this morning on them. And it's just amazing to me that this green bean literally is still bearing in this heat. We can snap them, we can eat them, they're still tender. They're a pole bean. And this coming year, Lord willing, we will have trellises up with these things growing on. We won't even be planting the bush bean next year, because we are actually trying to develop our homestead into a type of a place where we have specific plants that we grow here that are very prolific, that can take the heat, can take the water, and they just keep bearing. Not only do we want to can, but guys, we want to eat fresh off of them also. We're not all about just canning. We want to be able to eat from them. And see, that's some of the issues that we've been having, is that some of these other things that we plant, we haven't been able to eat very much fresh off of it if we planned on canning any for the wintertime. Just simply because they don't bear but just so long, and then the heat kills them. But if we can come up with other types of vegetables and plants that are very tolerant to this heat and humidity and rain and stuff like that, and just keep on bearing, then that's the direction we're going to try to go in. We're going to try to do that. And hopefully, we're going to be able to do that. We're finding these varieties out as time goes on, and you know, I really wished I would have known about a lot of this stuff many years ago, because if I had, it's a real good possibility that you know, that I would know more about it than I know now, and I would be better at doing what I'm doing. I'd be a more successful homesteader. I would, you know, but I grew up just with a mentality just like everybody else. I just go to the store if I don't have something. If it's something fails in the garden, I just go to the store and get it. And when the bottom line is, I should have been thinking more in the lines of being self-sustaining instead of depending on grocery stores. Now, grocery stores are not a bad thing. You can still get some foods there that's probably decent. I don't know. We haven't bought vegetables at a grocery store in a long time. But I guess what I want to try to do is this. Is I want to try to be the example, and I want to try and be the one who steps out and plants these certain things and tries to see whether they're successful or not. I want to be the one to take that risk, and if it works, then I want to be able to offer y'all the seeds from these things so that you too can enjoy the bounty that I've figured out. Because I mean, there's no sense in us all struggling and having our failures and stuff like that if one of us can just take the plunge. Now, Wanda and I have learned enough about growing some of these particular vegetables that I think we'll be extremely successful at them. But if not, then it will be a learning experience for us, because if we can do it while we still have access to other food, and it's not that we have to depend 100% on it, and if something fails, we're not going to go hungry, then that would be where we want to be at right now. We want to be able to be the leader in this and be able to tell y'all and show y'all how to be successful at it, and not have you have to fumble around through it, and like we're probably going to end up having to do. But that's what it's all about. If you're going to teach somebody how to do something, then you need to know what you're doing, because there's so many YouTube channels out there, and I can tell it right off the bat. You can tell they've went and read something, and they get right on YouTube and they talk about it. That doesn't fly with me. I'm one of these kind of guys. I don't watch very many channels. As a matter of fact, Wanda and I this past week hid our subscriptions just simply because there's just so many crazies out there that I don't even really want to go into it, but it's sad that it's got to be the way that it is, And since we've took on this endeavor to try to teach and to show some things that would work on a homestead to be more sustainable, we feel a little bit of a responsibility to be accurate about what we do and show you the failures as well as the successes, and not be just sitting here talking about it. That's, porch time is talking, but after porch time, we get out and we show in the fields, we show our processes of doing things, all the way from planting to taking care of it in the fields, to bringing it to the house, to preparing it, and all the way to canning it and preserving it. That's, to us, that's the ultimate teaching weapon that we can use, is to take you through the whole journey. We don't just sit and talk about what we do. We try to show you what we do. And as a result, we don't get all the views that everybody else gets. But guys, this is the way we look at it. If we can create an audience of people that are truly interested in being successful at being a survivor off of their land or their homestead, and whether we have, I know that it says we have 20-something thousand subs, but you can look at the views and you can tell that not all those people watch. Because if we have 20-something thousand subscribers, then we'd have 20-something thousand views on a video, but we don't. I don't know how it works. I don't know why we have 20-something thousand subs. It shows we gain 200 and 300 a week sometimes. And yet our views do not go up. So I'm not sure how the algorithm and all works on that, but Wanda and I have come to a point where we're okay with the community that watches faithfully. You know, there's some 3,000 people usually that'll watch a particular video, and if that's all that we're able to help on a regular basis, then, you know, we're okay with that. You know, we're not here to get rich at doing this. That's not our desire. But what we do want is to be able to show you things that are the truth. You know, anybody can read something and get out and do a little quick video on it. But guys, we want to be realistic with you. We want to be upfront. We want to be just who we are. We like I told you before, we don't create content. We get out and actually do our daily chores. I think Wanda put up one on Crazy Days this morning showing our sweet potato, or yesterday. She showed one yesterday of us harvesting sweet potatoes. And, you know, that's realistic. That just happened. We didn't go create that. We didn't plant those potatoes out there and then go pretend we dug them up. Those are actual potatoes off our property that we dug. And, you know, we'll show you canning videos. That's actual stuff that was raised on our property here that we're doing to give you all encouragement, to show you that it can be done, and this is how you do it. Because Wanda and I have been, I'm going to say we've been pretty successful at it. Like I told y'all, we're up to a point we're about 80% self-sustaining, and we're working on maybe looking at a small breed cattle so that we can have some of our own beef on our property here. Now we have chickens and we have rabbits and we have one sheep left, and we have already made a deal to bartering with him on some other things. But we're going to be getting out of sheep because sheep just seems to be something that doesn't work here for us. We've not been very successful with it because our animals are basically free rangers. We don't run out here feeding our animals all the time. Now we have hogs. They free range. They get fed a little bit, scraps from the garden and things like that. A few food scraps every now and then. Not many, but just a few, because we hardly have anything left over, to be honest with you. But like when we peel something, you know, with those peelings or, you know, things like that. If we're making something and then there's a little bit left over, we put it over in for the pigs to have. Because if we can eat it, well, they eat what we eat. Let me put it to you that way. So, you know, that's what we're looking at doing. If we can get a small breed of cattle here, and I know they're expensive, and that's one of our major holdups right now is just the expense of a breeding pair. Maybe a Dexter, or I think there's one they call Belted. There's a couple of varieties that I'm looking at. Don't know where I would find them at. Have no clue yet. Of course, I'm not ready for them, so I'm not at that point. Like I said, we don't have the financial resources right now to go out and just purchase them. So once we locate something, we have to be able to work towards that goal here on our homestead. And that's kind of where we're headed on our homestead. We're looking at being more self-sustaining by looking at gardening the way the Cherokees garden, seeing how it works for us, using some of the varieties that they used, doing a specific garden the way they did it to see how it works. The only thing is we won't be using fish to put in the garden because we don't have fish. You know, I mean, we would have to do something else. But guys, we want to be able to be out front, the ones that's leading the pack on being self-sustaining and showing other homesteaders how to do it, and how to do it well. Not to say that we're not going to have failures, because we do have failures, and we show you when we do. This past year, we've shown you, this spring, we showed you how the animals has hit the danny corn so bad. And guys, look, if it don't quit raining, I may lose that whole crop. You know, because we harvested 4 rows the other day, which is ready to harvest. But we went down to get 4 rows. Everything is just so wet. The cobs are wet, the corn shucks are wet, and when you start harvesting that stuff and it's wet, you can't just go pile it in the crib because it'll all mold. So we put, you know, we got a video coming about that where we de-eat the floor and we put 1 layer of corn down, 1 layer thick. We're going to let it sit in there for a while and dry. And when we're satisfied with this drying to the point that it's dried in this building, we'll add another layer if the corn holds up in the field. That's just it. A lot of what we picked the other day didn't hold up. It was actually sprouting inside the shucks. It was already sprouting because it's, even though it's hanging upside down, the shucks are so wet that the kernels are sprouting and trying to go out, and we'll show you that on the video. But you know, that's what Porch Time's about today. It's about being a little bit more self-sustainable, choosing the right varieties for your homestead, being honest about what you do, showing your crops from the time you put them in the ground till you put them in the jars, till you put them on a plate. You know, these are some of the things that that we're wanting to do here at Deep South Homestead, and we do like to relate some of the stories that we find and tell you a little bit about them, like the Trail of Tears, how that you know, the mistreating of the people, the taking of their land, and things like this. Because, my friends, let me just say this: history is known to repeat itself. It was the natives then. Could it be us next? Could they round us up and send us to camps called FEMA camps? You know, could these things happen to us? Just want to leave you with that thought today. So I hope that hope you've enjoyed Porch Time today. I know it hadn't been a lot of in-depth stuff, but it's kind of just letting you know where we're heading, and let you know the reason we're going in that direction, and we want to take y'all on that journey with us. So thank you from Deep South Homestead.